Hello, everyone. I am John Coleman from Apocatastasis, an Institute for the Humanities, an alternative college and high school. 3 and 2. Hello, everyone. I'm John Coleman from Apocatastasis, an Institute for the Humanities, an alternative college and high school here on New Milford, Connecticut, USA. This recording is a response to a question I was lately asked concerning developments digitally, and I'd like to give a deeper response to that. And I think it might be interesting, and like with a lot of these presentations, allows me to get my mind around a topic just as soon as you. And we can all benefit from this meditation here. Before we get going, a few words about our dear college, and that will be assisted by the screen share. And here we are. We can see the beautiful website of ApocatastasisInstitute. That's listed here. I need to wrestle with the toggle bar on Zoom. And here we are. So on our website, you can find out all about our classes. We have an integrated 3-year course of study in undergraduate level. And we also have a whole bevy of individual courses in our schools of theology, arts, and sciences, which are the traditional breaking up points of a college. And if you do go to the School of Arts, let's live a little, we'll click on the tab, you can find various courses, 16-week full college courses with reading and lecture and discussion and homework and essays and all that good stuff. You can find the topics, or at least topics related to what we're getting into here about the digital developments. And you can find that in this section under the history department, literature department. We have various overlapping points here. Where is Teeth of Iron? There we go, Teeth of Iron. I knew it was there. And we do look indeed at the idea and history of technocracy, which is going to overshadow our comments here. So something to think about there, and you can find out that link down below in the description. All right, so let's set ourselves up now that the advertisement has been seen to. We were lately at the college holding an evening of poetry. We have a naturist group, and we were meeting in conjunction with the work of the college, which, as you all know, from the 4 points or the 4 communities whom we serve, the 4th is the general public. And so we have this nudist group, and we had a poetry night in Manhattan. And a good night it was, the eve of St. Agnes, literally and artistically. But in the evening, the topic of ChatGPT came up, and we're going to get into that. And I was asked very informally what I thought about it, and the time and the circumstances didn't really allow me to get into a whole lecture about my thoughts on the matter, which are, if not fruitful, certainly profuse, I guess. So that's what this is. And what made that evening interesting, as we had a terrific view of one of the cathedrals in the city right out the window there, what made the evening interesting artistically is that the individual who had asked me this had produced this, it's called AI, but it's not actually AI, this ChatGPT affair. And we'll get into that here, the fundamental impossibility of machines thinking, which is a lot of fun for science fiction, but we need to keep our head about us. And I think there's something of hype that attends to this topic. And regardless of the marketing of ChatGPT and my reservations about it actually being AI or the impossibility of it, This machine, this algorithm, this computer program did produce rather serviceable poetry. It wasn't profound poetry, but a good lot of our poetry isn't that profound. I would say it approximated a good undergraduate coffee house level of the product of poetry, and that is impressive. That is impressive. And attending on the heels of that, of course, are things like deep fakes, which are getting increasingly good. Long gone are the days when the CIA could just put out the Jamaican bin Laden, which I should remind some of you young guys about. The ability to simulate in ways visual and intellectual reality is impressive, but we do want to keep our head about us, and we do want to be careful about pitchmen and admen. And I think a good place that we can develop from here is by reading this poem by Rudyard Kipling. And this poem is called If. A lot of you have read this poem in school. Some of you had to memorize it. Some of my students have had to memorize it in years gone by. Rudyard Kipling, who I think for a stretch actually lived in Vermont, although he was British through and through. If you can keep your head about you when all are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubt and you, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or be lied about and don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster, and treat with those true impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you spoke and twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up again with worn out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings and not lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiven minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything in it, and, which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Again, that poem is If by Rudyard Kipling, very famous poem. And where we're going here is indeed keeping our head about us with dazzling technology. This is my reservation about things like ChatGPT, deepfakes, data mining, these social media things, that the society, certainly throughout the 20th century, and it seems to be a certain sort of quickening happening for reasons deliberate and natural, is in the West, and increasingly the whole world is the West, we read our Toynbee, becoming unmoored from its larger traditions. Those could be literally the sense of self, one's corporality, being in their body. We spend so often just sitting down and watching things that we get disconnected to our bodies. I think that has to be taken into account with certain peculiarities in culture. The fact that there is this dissonance, to put a finer point on it, where do you get gender dysphoria from? Well, you get it from all sorts of places. That's an interesting topic, but part of it is just people are sitting in desks for the first 20 years of their life. They're not engaged in their bodies. And the ramifications of that are much larger than any sort of dysphoria, in fact. And so this is happening more and more in societies. And then familial bonds are breaking down, even in so-called whole families, or the rare family that isn't riven by divorce. How many of us know and can not just recite the name, but can recite things about their life? Know our great grandfathers. If you go to some of the traditional areas in the Middle East, Africa, South America, they do. Do we? No, because we're severed. We're constantly moving around. We're constantly destroying our families. We're quickly entering the age where we don't even make families. And again, these are reasons of natural wounded human nature running down a certain trajectory, but also social forces deliberately pushing things in that direction, which will be appropriate to discussions on technology as well. Religiously, that aspect of society, which is really the only aspect of society, as I see it, that can offer a counterweight to the state. The church, which is one of the reasons I tend to advocate so much for a strong church, is because it is really the only hope against the overweening Nimrodian empire. If you don't have that, and by the way, when I say church, that would depend on the culture. I think we're far too decomposed to even be having discussions of true faiths or any of this stuff. But simply that the religious structure of society, be that the actual church of Christ, the ulama of Muhammad, insofar as Hinduism is a single thing, and so forth with other traditions as well. I advocate for all of these in the interest of checking and hobbling the power of the state. Well, guess what? That's again collapsed for all sorts of reasons. It certainly collapsed in the formal Christian church. So we can go on about this decomposition. Do we need to get into the economics, the fact that almost everyone has a job? In fact, this is even considered to be a mark of status. So-and-so speaks of their good job. I would see this economic arrangement just as precarious as the divorced family, the man who cannot remember his great-grandfather 3 times out, the secular automaton, the deracinated man who has no sense of his ethnicity. I would say the man with the job is no matter how good socially perceived that job would be. If you do not own the means of your production, you are in a very dangerous situation. It does not matter if everyone else is in the same boat. That's cold comfort when that boat's going down. So getting to this topic of digital prowess and digital impressiveness, one of the things, to Kipling's sentiments, that we need to keep about us is our head. And we need to not be completely razzle-dazzled. Just because we have allowed ourselves over these years in our own lives and in our society to lose our ethnicity, to lose our religion, to make a wreck of our families, to make a wreck of our bodies, to make a wreck of our finances. Just because we have allowed ourselves to become degraded does not, and should not, ought not, give more credence to the razzle-dazzle of digital technology. And that is my reservation as I see things progressing, is that this aspect of life will become more and more important. And in fact, if you play out the clock, you will eventually find, as the decomposition in ways I just mentioned continues and the prowess of the machines continues, you will, I imagine, inevitably find out that men will come to see, as my camera conks out. So there's the proof of the tenuous nature of technology, and there's the proof of the tenuous nature of myself. This is my stream camera, my digital document camera. Let's try that again. So we both have amazing examples of the failure of technology and of people in the last minute there. But to get back on track, the inevitable conclusion, it would seem, is that men will come to worship the technology as a god. It will come to fill the role which has been vacated by the church. And again, I'm using that term very, very broadly here, of the religious structure, which is across the world, certainly in the West, not nearly as robust as it once was. So that's a danger. Well, because it's effectively the old idol worship. It's effectively the old idol worship, for instance, from the book of Daniel. At the very back of the book of Daniel, in the story of Bel and the dragon, which a lot of modern Bibles don't have, by the way. You can go look that up in your Apocrypha or your Deuterocanons, but there's a story there, and this actually was quite common in the ancient world. You would have these statues that people would worship, and they would often have mechanical features to them. Famously, the Baal statue would have like arms on pivots on hinges that would, toss a baby back into the bull's mouth. Horrible bit there. But you would also have in the Bible story statues on strings moving around and other things there. And so there's interesting that there's nothing new under the sun. So because fundamentally, what's the problem with idol worship? What's the problem? And even the so-called paganisms, if you really drill down into them, have their own critique of the rude object worship. Whether that's a statue of Baal or some digital program. Because I do think at a certain point, if trajectories in society continue, men will worship technology as a god. Hi, everyone. John Coleman quickly here in the middle of this presentation to invite you to go over to ApocatastasisInstitute.wordpress.com. And while there, in the dropdown of About the School, you can find out all about just that, the classes we offer, information about enrollment and matriculation, our schools of theology, arts, and sciences, as well as our campus and staff and testimonials, in addition to related materials. We accept students of about 16 years of age and up and teach at the undergraduate level. And with that, back to the show. The reality and the discomfort of idol worship is the idea that you're worshiping the product of someone else, right? So someone else who breathes air, just like you, made that thing you're worshiping. And that thing you're worshiping is a creature of another man, and it cannot have that transcendence. It can simulate the transcendence, but it doesn't have the transcendence. So with my preliminary thoughts on the matter all queued up, let's move into some stories here. Need to have a screen share. And this first piece is just telling us a little bit about ChatGPT. Now, of course, my comments are on the larger trend of larger questions of digital development. I'm not just focusing on ChatGPT, but this was the foil from whence this response came. And this is, of course, from Business Insider, which is a American capitalist production, and a competent one at that. So this is halfway through the story. We read that there's a large number of monkeys here giving you things that are impressive, but there is intrinsically a difference between the way that humans produce language and the way that large language models do it. Right? So this ChatGPT, you can find out many explanations of it. I typically, by the way, don't talk about stories within 6 months, but whilst this program is new, at least the rollout's new, you better believe this has been tested for many moons. but the public rollout is new. Typically, I like to wait about 6 months before a major story, sometimes several years. I still owe treatment of the Taliban takeover, or takeover is not quite the proper word there either, but the Taliban ascendancy in Afghanistan, and that was quite a ways before this recording. Everyone rushes to give their 2 cents worth, but this is more of really a slow burn topic that you could take back even really to the 18th century with things like Ned Ludd and certain conclusions people way back when were beginning to make about technology and following out these certain trends that they saw. So suffice it to say, ChatGPT is this giant compiler. So it takes all of the input points, which is why it's free. You know the old adage, if something on the internet is free, that means you are the product. So ChatGPT is free, not because the creators love you any more than the creators of Google love you. The reason it's free is they're harvesting all of your data to make a more perfect union, a very interesting phrase, of their simulacrum with reality. And this individual, and this is Matthew Sag, he's pointing out there's intrinsically a difference between the way that humans produce language, etc. And that's interesting because I lately came across an article about one of the more disgraceful products of Kent, Connecticut, even worse so than Henry Kissinger, and that's Seth MacFarlane, who made the disgusting Family Guy cartoon and American Dad and things like that. But it was very clear that this biography of his that I was reading was compiled from various other websites. You can tell that because of the repetition and the different phrases that appear at some points and not others. And a good lot of news comes to us actually from that. The difficulty here is that you can really only tell that if you're in good form for reading. And we talked about those decompositions in society. The more reading habits drop off, the more difficult it will be for individuals to tell the difference. I should make good on a promise I gave you recently, by the way, and that is the Jamaican bin Laden. So if you want to see as a compilation of this phenomena of ChatGPT, which is linguistical, in a visual format, I'm going to show you the fake bin Ladens that were shown to us in the beginning part of this century, including my favorite, the fat black Jamaican bin Laden. And then I'm going to compare it to another website. Yes, here we go. And that is a website called, let's see, thispersonisnotreal.com. And you'll see the same phenomena. And the problem is, as I intuit it, and this is my reservation with the whole lot of it, this person doesn't exist.com, rather. The reservation is that people they're not as passive Western life in all the ways that I laid out before continues to develop in its way, that discernment is going to go down. So a man who reads and writes is going to have a much easier time discerning the fraud of something like a ChatGPT than a man who does not. And likewise, a person who has a bit of discernment when it comes to visual imagery will also be able to pick things up. But the problem is, this is the problem, I suppose, of all luxury, chemical or otherwise, that it's so comfortable we let our guard down. And that's the the factor at play most that I see. So anyway, here is on the let's see, the right, we have the real bin Laden from Arabia, and these are only, a comparison. And then, a couple years into the war and terror saga, the CIA began pumping out all of these fake bin Laden videos, and we don't have time right now. There's actually one where you see it's like 6 or 8 different bin Ladens over about a year, and by the end of it, by 2011, 2012, whenever it was, they supposedly killed him for the 8th time. By that time, they were literally just running video games on the news. They were showing like Final Fantasy level graphics of bin Laden and saying this was the latest tape that was discovered, and nobody picked it up. Nobody blinked. And in the way my mind works, I suppose that's when Foggy Bottom and Silicon Valley just said, Katie, bar the door. And that's a whole world of meaning underneath that expression right now. But the point is, this is old school fraud. And here, with the rise of digital stuff, is a website called, again, thispersondoesnotexist.com. You can see the coding in the lower right. It's just that this gentleman here is not a gentleman. He's just a bunch of pixels. Where is his face coming from? It's coming from a compilation, which the coding is there, of other people. This is effectively how ChatGPT works. Let's get a few other fake people. These people cannot be written. They cannot be phoned up. They cannot be found because they do not exist. They never existed. These are all the images from Facebook and MySpace and Google and so forth. These are all the images that are compiled. So we have your cheesy Jamaican dude here. That's your old school fake, and here's your this computer model. Get another one here, and I think you get the point. Right. Okay. So whom does this benefit? Well, it benefits predominantly the controlling state, the cathedral being the nexus between civil, cultural, and academic power, we could say, between the state, Silicon Valley here in these United States, and academia. That's the cathedral, if you ever hear me use that language. Okay, and who's producing ChatGPT? Because I was asked, at the beginning of this program and at the beginning of the initial response here, you'll recall that I was asked, what do I think about that? I think a lot of these programs are receiving state funding, and they're not nearly as independent as they might make out to be. I do not believe that Facebook ever was started in some dude's garage, Mark Zuckerberg's garage, or whatever the story is, or that Google started in a garage, which I think is literally the story of Google, or that what else? What are the other ones? All of these allegedly independent companies, these giant conglomerates like TikTok and whatever, ChatGPT, I do not believe for a second that they are independent entities. I believe they are, and when it comes to Google, I think that's pretty well acknowledged. People will not be rolling their eyes about the reality that Google is funded by the NSA in a way they might have before. But in any case, I think that's pretty much the case across the board. YouTube, in its original inception and so forth, that these are giant, unbelievable filters. And one proof of that is the Utah data center. The Utah data center. There are various data centers where a great deal of web traffic is not only funneled through, but is collected and crunched and so forth. So there's a massive spying apparatus, and that's fundamentally where I'm coming from. So you have the decomposition of individuals and societies, organic actual societies. At the same time, you have a lot of the razzle-dazzle, right? You have a lot of the razzle-dazzle that'd be quite impressive. And that's going to for a lot of deracinated people, fill the void of more meaningful aspects of life that we formerly enjoyed. And while that little kabuki theater is going on, the state behind it all, like on Plato's cave wall, the state is just sucking up all of this data in order to increase the debility of their population. And so this is a great danger. This is a great danger. Finally, to that point, as we wind things down here, you have the talk, indeed, of techno-spirituality from Huffington Post, a Decepticon website, if there ever was one. But nevertheless, in these websites, sometimes they're quite honest. So is there a techno-spirituality by Deborah Campbell? Engagement with our devices, however trance-like and wired in, it feels, at its most intense, has an underlying quality of dewing mind, a state of mind that is active intellectually, engaged, in flow perhaps, but busy achieving. Okay. Our devices are our personal portals into other places, providing transcendent opportunities, engagement, and freedom from the limits of our physical reality for a while. No wonder we love our computers and phones as we do when they touch on accessing realms of experience previously left to spirituality, communion with the self and others in a non-physical environment. Technology opens doors to complete other worlds in which we can express ourselves unlimited by time, distance, even appearance, and other identifying characteristics. We go on. Technology is omnipresent in our world. And by the way, there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek religious language here. Intriguing, addictive, magical, yet everyday practical and increasingly unavoidable. How can we help adoring a forum like gaming, where we can experience immortality and embody our most desired traits through avatars? There are life-threatening battles where we know there's little actual danger. There's always another chance to win if you're beaten. Then, as if the experience wasn't transcendent enough, there's the incomprehensible for most of us, magnificent operating system in the background of all we do that supports our many apps and programs, like a great unseen deity of techno joy and a hub of infinite wisdom. Okay, so this is all pantomime. This is, in the biggest meta sense, the reservation with techno-spirituality, with things like ChatGPT, all of these AI deepfake voices, which are getting quite good, and videos there. You've probably seen Emma Watson reading Mein Kampf, and these other, whatever, Barack Obama reading Johnny Cash lyrics, and it looks very real. That's the trick, getting back to Kipling's poem, to keep our head about us when all are losing theirs, or surrendering it to the razzle dazzle of technology, is to realize it is ultimately fake, and to realize the old reservation about idol worship. The problem with idol worship is it's masturbatory. It doesn't produce anything, and it's pretending what is false is real, and it's acting as if it is the thing itself. And that's the danger. There's, of course, all sorts of quotidian problems with something like ChatGPT. As a teacher, I can only imagine the fun we're going to have in the years ahead. And it certainly does both at once potentially eliminate some redundant work, which probably wasn't humanly enriching, and then also maybe threatening whole fields. For instance, legal writing is one that's come up a lot. In fact, in one of the articles we looked at, they brought that point up. But that's going to be the tightrope to walk going forward, is to realize that no matter how powerful and impressive this stuff can be, and impressive it is in its own way, it will never be the real thing. Those faces of fake people are not actual people. The essay, the poetry, doesn't have the soul. It can pantomime it pretty decently, and maybe to a sophomore level, but it doesn't have an ultimate transcendence. It can just simulate transcendence. So with that, we'll wind it down here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your attention. Please feel free to write myself at ApocatastasisInstitute at AOL.com. I look forward to your comments and suggestions, maybe for additional follow-ups to this piece, and your 2 cents as well. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Masalama. Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that presentation brought to you by ApocatastasisInstitute. If you would like to assist our work, you may do so by going to apocatastastisinstitute.wordpress.com/contact, and you can access our donations website, rhetoricanova.xyz. You can find that down below in the description. See you next time.